Hello, and welcome to a chat about Deadzone, a game by Mantic Games. It's available for £65, and it's a tabletop miniature war game. Something a bit different for us, Richard.
It is very different from what you used to. I'll just put that away.
That was the box.
That was the box. So obviously this is the starter set, and you get everything that you need to
play a good few games.
Yeah, to get going. So I mean, first thing with any miniatures thing is
building the
miniatures,
getting
putting
to
them together.
Point.
And
you did that.
I did all.
Let's be honest. Richard built everything and painted our miniatures. So, Rich, do you want to talk us through how that was?
Yeah. So this was the first thing that I'd done for a while. I used to do quite a lot of Games Workshop stuff when I was about 15, 16. This is the first time that I'd kind of come back to miniature wargaming and painting and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty happy with how they came out, but
they look good.
It was, and the models are absolutely beautiful. Kind of, in the first time we played, all I had was them kind of assembled and sprayed white, and they already looked good.
Oh yeah, I was impressed with them already then.
But as soon as you put some paint on and kind of a nice little layering thing, it really brings out the detail. But so Mantic use a kind of special type of plastic, which is a bit different to what Games Workshop use. Which meant that my plastic weld didn't work very well, so everything kind of had to be super glued. But before that, there was an awful lot of kind of cleaning up, removing seam lines, and because they kind of slot together as they're supposed to. So there's no kind of, I can't move this arm.
Yeah, there's no customization.
So he's waving or anything. Yeah. And they all kind of had a sort of peg system.
Yeah.
So it was like a T-shaped peg for this arm slotted into there. Which required a lot of cleanup to get it to actually slot in as it should do.
Get to that point.
And even if it was already clean, a lot of the time you still had to open up those kind of apertures to make sure everything slotted together.
Okay.
The other thing with the fact that everything went together as it was supposed to was that there was an awful lot of finding which bits were supposed to go with what.
Okay.
To start off with.
That wasn't obvious.
No, not really. I mean, a lot of these arms look relatively similar, especially on kind of...
Bit racist, but okay.
Well, I mean... Sure, mutants. Yeah, that's. I'm a terrible person. But it just... Everything was kind of packaged together, so you could see that like a certain types of troops were already packaged together. But because those troops all have the same sort of look of an arm, like there's not a lot of difference between this and this.
Yep.
When you already can't really tell the difference between the different torsos.
Okay. Yeah.
It meant that it was just another step that was kind of I didn't quite enjoy in comparison to again the Games Workshop stuff where you have a sprue and basically all of the arms all fit with everything. There's a lot more customization.
Yep.
Which is more the sort of thing that I would enjoy. But, like we said, once these go together, they do make some ridiculously pretty models.
Yeah, I mean this one just like I love this model purely because like it's just not on its base like most models are basically stands on a base, that's fine. But this one,
well, this is the sort of thing that like you wouldn't do as like an amateur model. Like it's like me. If I was basing models, I wouldn't do that. But it came kind of ready to do that. Yeah. The only thing I had to do was just realign the wrist a bit, so dip it in some boiling water and kind of reshape it just so that it sat properly on there.
Yep.
That was the only one that I had to do any kind of reshaping with.
Okay. How long did it take, do you reckon? Just forgetting about the painting, just assembling the models.
So kind of cutting and clean up and everything probably took best part of an afternoon.
Okay.
4 or 5 hours.
4 or 5. Okay.
To assemble and including spraying them.
Okay.
And then painting them took the entirety of the season of Psychopaths.
Okay.
So that's like something like 8 hours.
8 hours. Okay. But you did a very thorough job on them.
Yeah, and I actually did the Mantic and Army Painter is kind of the paint system that they use.
Okay.
Which involves basically blocking in colours and then using what they call their shades.
Okay.
Which are almost like inks and translucent. So you just like roughly paint in the colour that you want and slosh on the shades, and what that does is kind of go into all the recesses. So it brings out lots of nice kind of detailing. So
Oh, that's cool.
I did that and then just dry brushed them afterwards. And then kind of did that a few times in different colours. So like the soldiers were a lot kind of easier, a lot less work.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to have too much different colour there, so I basically just did. First of all, everything was primed in white, and then base coated all of these in grey. Then did a light, and then I did a shade over the whole thing. So washed the whole thing in black, then and go back in with the darker grey. Fill in the detail, wash it again, and then just silver on some of the guns and bits, and then one last wash over the top.
Cool.
Whereas these were a lot more different kind of combinations of colours to try and get them right. Specifically the ones that are kind of the most mutated. So like these guys and that guy. Just to kind of make them a bit more detailed. But they were a lot of fun. They were especially dry brushing them at the end. It was like, oh, here we go. Like these are some really cool models, and they really do look good.
How much were the paints?
I think about a set of the army paints was about £30.
Okay.
So not like
each.
No, for a full set of about £20.
Okay, cool.
I got that off of Amazon. Might be a bit more expensive if you buy it directly from them.
Okay.
But that's the sort of thing that you have to spend if you're going to get them. Into modelling. And
then the scenery, the terrain.
Yes.
This took you about an hour to construct.
Yes, we did that here one time.
Yeah, before we played.
Yeah, and
which you did again all on your own.
So I didn't paint any of the scenery. The scenery is supposed to be kind of changeable, so everything's supposed to clip in.
Okay.
Again, needed a lot of cleaning up to make that work. A lot of time I just got frustrated and glued everything.
Yeah.
The idea is that you can kind of rebuild it every time you play, so you have a different setup. But then if you're going to do that, you're not really going to be able to paint it properly. Because I imagine then it's not going to clip together properly because you got the paint, the paint kind of filling those gaps or whatever. So if I was to do this properly, I'd kind of assemble it as I wanted, spray it and paint it.
Okay.
But yeah, the scenery's it's a really cool thing, and that's one thing that you wouldn't get in a lot of starter sets of games. Keep bringing up Games Workshop, but the Games Workshop starter set for both the Warhammer and the 40k run about the same price. So about £60-65. And whilst you'll get a lot more miniatures in those, you won't get any scenery. The reason being is this is a game that revolves around scenery a lot more. Whereas those are more kind of open combat. This is all about kind of skirmishes in a cityscape. And that changes kind of how the combat works constantly. Okay, so that's kind of how you get the game together, but then we need to talk about how the game actually plays.
So the base set comes with enough models just to mix it up once in a while. You get stat cards, which are pretty cool actually. They've got the picture of the unit on, and it's got all the stats, their cost, all their abilities. So you construct a 70-point team as a standard to face off against another 70-point team. The game comes with two factions. It's the Plague and the Enforcers. And then you sort of just have at it. The game comes with mission cards as well, which will have not only setups in the bottom corner, but also objectives. You can mulligan if you want, but then you have to stick with the second card. And the missions are mostly either kill everything or escape off the other side of the board or control points, action points, areas.
To start off with, you're going to distribute. Well, initially you find out whereabout you're setting up troops up, and then you put down crates and also objective points, which are secret until you land on them. And then obviously you set up your terrain. I don't know how officially done, but me and Richard just had a chat about it and did what we thought was fair. The game is really cool because it comes with a tiled map. This is one of my favourite parts about the game. Instead of having to deal with measuring tapes and markers and guides, it's simply an 8x8 grid. You can move one tile as a standard, or sprint 2 tiles, and then shooting is a range of tiles.
So then, basically, you then try to achieve your objective and fight and shoot each other while you're at it. There's a lot of keywords in the game, which I quite. It's good and it's bad. When getting into it, it's a bit daunting because there are so many. But it's nice because I'm a card game fan. These sort of abilities, I like them because you can just group up, you can. What am I trying to say, Richard?
Well, you can just be like, okay, right, here we go. I'm kind of throwing down all of these different combos of abilities, like you would in a card game.
Yeah.
And really kind of boost it up, which means that you end up rolling like a ridiculous number of these dice when you attack or defend.
That's what I was trying to say.
But it does mean that, like Andy said, the first few times you play, you're going to be flicking through that rulebook constantly, trying to work out how many dice are plus and minus. That's basically how all the different abilities in combat work, at least. It's all, okay, so he's got this, which means he gets +2 dice roll, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. The sort of the to attack checks and the fighting checks are pretty cool. As a standard, you roll 3 dice, and you try and beat the stat on your card. Which again, what I really like, there's no sort of like pieces of paper or printed out Excel spreadsheets with all your troops, and there's nice, well produced cards to show that. And so you just simply roll. Every time you attack, the defender gets to roll a survive check, and it's basically just how many successes you get versus how many successes they get to determine if you hit them or not.
And what's quite cool is, on top of that, if you get like double the number of successes than there is saves, then that has like extra abilities that go on involved, and triple and so on.
Yeah, there's an ability to do good and then better and then bestest.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is probably not the words you should use, but that's
what we do.
That's what I did. There's a lot of customization in terms of items that you can put down. The mutants have special mutant abilities. You draw 3 from a pile of 8 before each game, just specifically for them. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, so that could throw a wrench into the works. But it's even though it's an 8x8 grid, I feel there's enough in here to get a good few games out of by changing things around.
Yeah, and like you said, with the point limit, certainly you can't field all of the models that you've got.
Yep.
So that means that straight off the bat you have to make kind of decisions of, well, I really like, I don't know, this guy, but that means that I can't take half of my models.
Yeah, he's pretty expensive.
And likewise for the
he's super expensive.
The soldier, big bad. So you're never going to be playing with the same troops each time if you keep it to those 70 points. So like you're going to be forced to kind of see what you can do with what you can take to the table. And experiment that way.
Along with simply strategically sort of playing the game out like you would any miniatures game, you get battle cards in these games, and there's 2 things I love about these. The fact that you only play with 20 in a game, and I don't even know the total, but I think there's about 40, so basically you're not always playing with the same deck. And that the fact that the cards have 2 options, so you've actually got a choice of which ability to use. And this will just help turn the tide of battle at times you need it. Maybe you get an extra dice to attack, maybe you get an extra movement. It's really basic stuff, but just adds that extra layer of strategy to the game. And
like you mentioned earlier, there's quite kind of how it plays like a card game. There's quite a lot of satisfaction to being able to, like, especially if you're defending and you think that your opponent's been quite cocky, so you'll be like, well, actually, boom, so I get an extra defense dice, so try as you want, but I'm rolling 8.
It's just your favourite ability in any game, isn't
it?
Just to do something to change, like, oh, actually, well, let me correct you there, sir.
I think you'll find. But it does kind of create that point of like, well, you think you're doing so well, but how about this? And especially quite a lot of the times we've played, you've been distracting the guys that I most want to play using those cards. So it does kind of really force you to think what your opponent might have, rather than just what they have on the table.
Yeah. And on top of that, you get to choose a commander for your team, and your commander for the plagued. It's this badass big guy. He's got a command total of 6, which means he can only move 6 units, six models in a game round. And if you're fielding 8, you then have to choose which 6 of those 8 that you move, and then sort of as you're sort of progressing towards each other for that battle, you've got a couple left behind. So it's, again, that adds another layer on what you can do. And I'm sure with expansions, there's higher command totals, or there's more units you can field. It's a very interesting game round.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we were playing, I decided not to take my kind of main commander, so I had 4 instead. So like my total was 4, which meant that every round I was only moving 4 guys, which put me at quite a disadvantage in comparison to you being able to move and shoot with 6.
Yeah.
You soon start to get swarmed a little bit.
I mean, the way it works is the enforcers are sort of your more expensive but ultimately tougher guys, and the plague are sort of the Zerg of the world, where you've got lots of little but not as tough units. So both teams also play slightly differently, and I think that sums up the game.
That's the core stuff
quite nicely. The only thing I will add before we break to the next bit are all the tokens you get, which are kind of cool. That they're at least colourful compared to Games Workshop stuff.
Yeah, they're all very different.
There's a good amount of tokens there. You keep going. To symbolise different things, you've got items that you can take. There's the mutants that you get. There's like suppressed. There's damage. There's a lot of tokens.
There's a lot, which is good and bad. It's nice that they're there, but it does just kind of confuse things a little bit, especially when you're getting started with stuff.
Yeah, I think the first couple of times they're a bit ominous and plentiful, but ultimately they're good.
I mean, they're there to make life simpler.
Yeah,
but initially it doesn't seem that way.
I think that's fair. So Richard, what do you think of this game?
I think I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of good here.
Yep.
There are some bad points which we'll probably touch on later.
Yep.
For me at least. But like you mentioned, when you're talking about the gameplay, one of the big things about this is you don't have to have a ruler.
Yep.
You don't have to have that big of a tabletop.
Yep.
Everything's kind of self-contained. When we've moved it around in this box.
So it's a bonus.
Which is kind of, it's a little bit bigger than your standard board game box, but it's better than having to have kind of a suitcase and a tape measure and all of the sorts of things that you would have to carry around for a Warhammer game.
Yeah.
I mean, the board system just makes it nice and easy, and the kind of cover system is simple as well. It's just line of sight, and if there's a piece of plastic in the square you're in cover.
Yeah.
Which is simple. And it's cool. The stuff that you get in the box is really good. Like I mentioned, the quality of the models is excellent. Yes, you need to put a little bit of work in to get there, but that's kind of to be expected. The kind of the fact that you get all of this kind of furniture for the board, again, it's really cool. It makes it seem a lot more like you're actually playing a kind of urban warfare game.
Yep.
Yes, perhaps that could work a little bit better somehow. I don't know how, but just if it was a little bit more ready to go out of the box. But again, no idea how they could do that really. And again, kind of you expect to put in some work when you get a game like this,
especially if you want the models looking this nice anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I really would like to spend some time on these because I think it'll make the game pop a lot more.
Okay.
But I mean, the models with the time that I put in, which wasn't that much for a game like this, have really come out quite well. I'm really happy with them. The game itself, like I said, I like how simple it is in a lot of ways. Especially, yes, I'm going to keep throwing this back to kind of Warhammer because that is the game that I've played with that's a miniatures game.
Yep.
It's not quite as simple as something like X-Wing, which is kind of the other end of the scale, but it's kind of a nice medium. It's nice to just be able to say, okay, I'm just rolling +1 dice, or -1 dice, or +3 dice, whatever. That's a lot easier to kind of get your head around than, oh yeah, well, you're rolling +1 dice, but that one gets +2 to it, and this one gets... It's just a lot simpler. It's quite a good game to kind of maybe start with. I think with the miniatures game, a lot of what you need to get started with is just something that you think looks cool.
Yep.
So, maybe this wouldn't be for you, or maybe it would. That's going to be purely subjective. But I like how simple it is. I think if you had one person that knew it well, they'd be able to introduce somebody else to it quite easily.
Yep.
Which is a big thing.
Yep.
But yeah, there's certainly a lot good there.
Yep. Can I touch on
good
before we move on? I love the cards. I think they're really cool. I think they could be slightly designed just slightly better. That I'm sorry for that criticism, but the points value could be maybe down here in the corner, just to make it a bit more readable. But overall, I like the fact they come with cards. I think that's much more exciting than being in like a rule book or an army book, a la Games Workshop stuff.
It's a lot easier than having to bring a codex to the table.
Yeah, exactly.
And flicking through that. Like we said, you do have to flick through the rule book, but at least these are there and ready for you.
Yeah. Likewise, I love I would want to call it the simplicity, but the stripped back game rules. You've got your battle cards to help, but you're just sort of on here, you're fighting. I love the theme. I love the urban warfare. That's what I love. I used to play a bit of Games Workshop stuff as well, and I love the fact it comes with scenery. It's perhaps not as important in Games Workshop games, but the fact that you get that, I think is pretty cool. The game costs £65, and I think for that amount, you get enough to justify that for me.
Yes. Yeah.
So I there's some really cool things about this game that I absolutely love, but downsides.
Yes.
I don't think there's too many.
I think a lot of the downsides that we have for this game are downsides that we would have for all miniature warfare games.
Yeah, I think to be frank, this isn't the sort of game I enjoy playing. So I personally didn't love us playing it, but I think I'm mature enough to realise that's purely me and not on the game. One thing I do not like is the fact you get cards for models that aren't in the game.
Yeah, that's a bit. It just kind of rubs me the wrong way a bit. It's one thing to have them in the rule book and be like, look, these are the cool other models that you could get. But when they give you the cards for them, it's like, okay, so where's this?
You could supply that in the expansion box that you buy for the model,
and I'm sure they do.
And then I wouldn't worry about them.
Yeah, it's just a strange choice.
Yep.
And yeah, they do that for both teams, and it's a bit kind of. It just rubs me up the wrong way.
Yeah. I think ultimately you're probably going to have to invest a bit more than this. I think this is good for a good 5 to 10 games, but I think, and this is probably for every miniatures game, like even
absolutely
X-Wing you have to put in. I mean, X-Wing's a different beast, but still you've got to buy.
I think you're going to get a lot more play out of this set than you would the X-Wing core set.
No, definitely.
Because the X-Wing core set, you play that once or twice and you're like, well, this is not enough. Whereas this would keep you going. Like we said, there's enough there to kind of change up how you're playing each match.
Yeah.
Which will kind of lengthen that lifespan.
Ultimately, though, if it is for you, you're going to have to invest in expansions. But I mean, there's 2 other races that you can get involved in if they tickle your fancy more.
Which are effectively dwarves and orcs, I think.
I know. One.
Yeah.
One of them is definitely orcs, which get everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, like apart from, and then perhaps you want to count the scenery, constructing the scenery as a downside.
I mean, it was just like another thing. The scenery's not terribly exciting when you're constructing it.
Yeah.
So it's not like when you're putting this bad boy together and you're like, yeah, this is awesome. It's just kind of a means to the end, and especially because I went into it thinking, oh yeah, well we'll rebuild it each time.
Yep.
So well, actually, I don't want to spend the time doing that. I'd rather get the box, get it all out, get it on the table, and let's go. But for you, that might not be the case. And again, like for you, a lot of these problems might not bother you. You might like seeing what these other figures are. You might like the kind of overabundance of tokens. You might not like the board. Who
You
knows?
should like the board, though. It simplifies so much.
Yeah, most level. It's a lot better than kind of nudging a tape measure through the scenery, and it's
Okay, ultimately, yes or no on Deadzone?
I can't. Oh, well, well. I mean, I like the models.
Okay.
I really like the models, but the game's not for me. Models super cool, game not so much.
Okay.
And you?
If you enjoy miniature games, yes. If you're just a classic board gamer, potentially no. But I love Mantic Games. I hadn't heard about them until we went to Dragon Meet. I love the fact that there is an alternative to Games Workshop, which because I think everyone knows Games Workshop, and I think Mantic Games deserve to be known about because they are producing some quite cool different games. So yeah, if this sort of stuff looks cool, I think you're going to have a good time with it. If you've gone, oh, this is miniatures game, cool, probably not. Okay, so I think that about sums it up. If you like the look of it, definitely go ahead. If not, probably don't.
Yeah.
But definitely do check out Mantic Games' website. The link is below. They're very cool. They're British. And they're very cool. And we do have an interview with
Mark Wallace
from Dragon Meet. So check that out. You can find out more about the company. If you like the video, please like, comment and subscribe. I'm so sorry to say that. But I feel like we have to now. We want to become real YouTubers.
Get that YouTube dollar.
You can get that YouTube dollar.
But as we're not getting that YouTube dollar at the moment, we've also got a Patreon. So if you really like our stuff, you can head over there and become one of our patrons, and that would be fantastic. But if not, just like Andy said, like, comment and subscribe. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.